Okay, so once you have SolidWorks installed, whether from the admin image or off of the SolidWorks installation manager, you'll have a couple of icons, maybe more, from the admin image, SolidWorks 2018, and eDrawings 2018 is the standalone viewer. I went ahead and launched since it takes about a minute or so to launch. One of the first things that we'll do is the little gear at the very top middle is options. The little arrow next to it will expand out, and we'll go to Addins. And I have my screen set to very simple. There's not a lot of the color is very basic settings, so it may look a little bit different than yours. We don't need simulation on right now, so I'm going to go ahead and uncheck both the active. It took 9 seconds to load simulation. We're not using CAM just yet, so I'm going to turn it off on startup. It looks like it's not active. Forms show up under the home in the list of current items. There's it's one of those, if you're interested, go ahead and leave it on. The rest of the items, pretty much just going to uncheck everything. All right, so it's not going to save a huge amount of time. It's just there won't be there won't be things that are loading that you're not going to use. All right, so our basic splash screen work area. Wherever you see the arrows and a push pin, I can lock in the push pin. I still like to see the pull downs. If you want to work everything off of the command manager or the toolbars, you certainly don't have to have the pull downs accessible. But if I can't find it, or I'm going to search through the commands, it's nice to have that available. The standard toolbar, welcome. So when we first launched, I kind of cleared through this. This will be coming up, and part assembly or drawing, the defaults. As we get a little further along, you want to create your own templates. And this is a step in the right direction, but I don't think it's done yet. The recent documents for the first part of the launch, being able to get whatever you worked on last, and recent folders, resources. And I want to say somewhere there was a don't show this again checkbox, which usually I would don't show this again. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. All right, so coming across, we have the new, creating new documents, open existing documents, saving, printing, and the all-important undo and Control Z. Going back to the selection tool, which most of the time an escape or right-click and select will get you back to the arrow, leaving a command, going to the next command. Rebuild, and that should be a Control B, and we'll talk about the difference between Control B and Control Q. File properties is a shortcut to file, and don't have a document open, so somewhere down here would be file properties, and that would also be why it's grayed out. And then we're going to spend probably a complete lecture on the options. Right now, this should come up with just the system options. So everything you never wanted to know about SolidWorks. And there's a few high points that we'll need to cover. And then once a document's open, then you'll also have access to document properties. All right, so there's some things, some basic navigation to get you started, be able to find a few things, and work through any issues that might arise. On the search, then I'm going to go to commands, and what commands will do is if I start to type in line, well, it went to line format and spline tools, not exactly what I was expecting, maybe sketch. All right, so sketch tools, it will take me to the sketch toolbar or into a command that I'm looking for and can't find on the command manager, which we will get to, or in the pull downs. Logging into to SolidWorks with the My SolidWorks, a little more with the help, minimize, spanning displays. I am on an extended, my laptop is extended to this display. If I were to expand it, it would cross over, or maximize to the screen, because YouTube works in 1280 by 720. That is the size of my window, not necessarily the size of the display. All right, and then the X is going to close the program, whereas if we're in a document, the next row down, minimize, maximize, and close that document. The task pane, and again we have a push pin, so if I want to see the task pane, and then the other item would be that you can dock and undock. And is it going to let me take it out of the screen? Well, sort of. It's going to let me move it around. And I can take it to the other side of the display or bring it back, push pin it for something that I'm working on. If we'd left the forum add-in active, then it would show up a list of the latest forum topics and discussions. We have a design library, which is commonly used, or things that we would want to reuse across multiple projects. The toolbox works in the assembly mode, so our fasteners, screws, nuts, bolts, washers, pins, and then Content Central. It's worth the quick look to see if something that you're going to source or build into your project is already available somewhere on the web as from a supplier or through another user. The File Explorer, I shouldn't have to think that hard about it. So open in SolidWorks is going to be a list of all the files that are currently loaded into memory, and then navigating to your system, being able to go to the files as a shortcut. The view palette works specifically with drawings, appearances, scenes, and decals. So colors, textures, screen backgrounds. And then custom properties, we haven't created anything, so there really shouldn't be anything to show up. All right, oh, didn't mean to do that. Oh, it kicked me out. Okay, that was interesting. I didn't get an error, and it didn't tell me it was closing. So found a blip. All right, so we're going to close the task pane. If for some reason the task pane gets turned off, let's see. We can go to View, and there is the task pane, toolbars, Motion Manager, status bar. We'll come around to the status bar. Those are available. Also, if you have a touch screen, then certain commands for the touch mode, and then a list of all of the available toolbars. All right, so across the bottom is the status bar. We have the version of the software. When we're in a document, we'll be able to see things like its current activity, what it's you're sketching, its waiting. You have a fully defined sketch or an underdefined sketch, and then coordinates as you make selections. All right, so ready to actually start a document. So File, New, and the first time you open up a document, it's going to ask you for your initial units, inch, pounds, and seconds, which we will stay with. Your choice, ISO or ANSI. A long time ago I left it at ISO, and I actually prefer ISO. So there are some advantages to ANSI, but I think there's more advantages to ISO. So it's mainly a matter of what you get used to and how much detailing you're going to be doing. Once I hit OK, I'm not going to see the units and dimensions standard again. That just kind of sets the default for the system. and it goes through the process of finding the default part template and puts us into our work mode. I don't think I told it was an assembly. Okay, there we go. All right, so new. It's we are in the novice version, so it is the default part, default assembly, default drawing, and a quick link to tutorials. I prefer to be in advanced because when we create our own templates, when we set an inch part and a metric part, and all of the preferences that we like to have, the default decimal places and tolerances and those types of items, they will show up here, not on the novice. So novice, very simplified. Advanced, a little bit more. You have well, the MBD. So size ranges based on must be based on tolerances. I haven't explored that far. And then the standard tutorial. So we'll leave the tutorial alone and we'll work with the templates. So I can either double click on the part or highlight the part and hit OK, and that's going to take me into the part module. So across the bottom, we kind of left off with the status bar. Now we have editing part. Inch, pounds, and seconds is a quick link to different units. And also, if I click on the edit document units, it will take me right to those document properties units, the options available for that setup. And then I'm slightly off screen hitting OK. And I have an interesting splash screen. So what's going on with my video card? Alright, so I'm going to pause while I figure this out. Okay, so we're going to run through that again. New part. And then what I had to do, and it's kind of a, see, I want to say this computer is now about 5 years old. It's running Windows 10. It's an i7 with 8 gig of RAM. And under performance, if use software OpenGL is available and you're having that screen anomaly, that weirdness where the splash screen, it went to some weird colors. It also picked up the desktop background when I minimized and maximized it. And so I checked use software OpenGL, and that seems to have corrected corrected for the screen. So don't do that unless you are having issues. If everything is coming up and you have a kind of a normal screen background, which this would be a normal screen background, then we'll move on. So status bar units really don't do too much with tags. I'll just kind of keep going clockwise. We have the feature tree, and as you hover, notice the front plane, and I'm still getting a little bit of a lag. So we'll have to look at our default. This laptop has an NVIDIA GeForce, which is more of a gaming card than the Quadro series. So maybe it would be better with the Intel on board. So laptops are a little bit can be a little bit interesting to set up. If you have issues with your laptops, then that would be one. Let me know, and we'll get it set up. So one of the things, just since I'm on that topic, when you go to launch, if you right-click and run with graphics processor, if your laptop or even your desktop has more than one video card, it will allow you to pick which one you want to launch with. So I have it set as the default to the NVIDIA processor, but like I said, launching it with the integrated Intel on board may be preference if I'm going to get that kind of weird lag. All right, because it's having to draw the planes and whatnot. So anyway, we're going to see the part. The default, and display are configurations and display states. We'll get to those. I don't really use history or sensors that much. We're going to make some adjustments when we set the template, but these will do for now. Annotations are items that are in reference to the screen, and then material selections for pretty much our database of standard materials, and then can go into further detail. So we saw the front plane, the top plane, the right plane, and the origin at the intersection of the three planes. Going across the tabs, we have the property manager, which will change to the property manager pretty much seamlessly. So when we pick a line command, the properties for that line will show up, and we really don't have to do anything to get that. Configurations on top. The simplest explanation of a configuration is like a socket head cap screw. You may have 10 different sizes in a machine screw, from an odd 80 all the way up to a, if we were going to stay in the machine screws, the 12, 20, 28? Anyway, somewhere in that grouping. And then lengths from 1/8 of an inch up to 4 inches. Rather than having, well, what would amount to 1,000 different files, I could put in groups and have the configurations drive the physical features so that I have one socket head cap screw file with, well, potentially hundreds if not thousands of parts. The display states are going to control visual properties, things like the textures, the colors, and transparencies, those types of things. DIM Expert and MBD, model-based definition, are pretty close together. And then the appearances have, oh, and I got my task pane turned off, so back up to view. Now that we're in a document, we're going to look at the user interface and click task pane. So we have the appearances list, so things like what has been applied, decals that are available, scenes, lights, and cameras. So this is what has already been applied, and then over on the task pane, these are what is, these items are available to apply. All right, coming up to the command manager. So I guess finishing out the feature tree. More tabs will appear, so if we turn cam on, there will be items for interfacing with the cam program. And then like simulation will show up over here. So we want to kind of minimize the add-ins to just what we're using. So coming across the top, we have the feature tree, or I'm sorry, above the feature tree, we have the command manager. I want to check one thing real quick. If I grab, drag the command manager by the tabs to undock it. All right, so it's not undocking, which means that I believe I've locked it. All right, so we'll take a look at that here in a second. So features, things that are grayed out, there's no geometry available. If I were to click on extrude, it would ask me to create a sketch. Once the sketch is closed, defined, follows the basic rules, then we would be able to extrude it out into a solid. Same with the revolve, we would create geometry out in the work area, give it an axis of revolution, and then be available to revolve. So coming across reference geometry, curves, instant 3D, we're going to turn off. So I would say uncheck that, and anytime you see that that is on, and that may be one of the examples that when we customize, we just remove that. Instant 3D allows you to drag solids and override basic dimensions, or dimensions that are underdefined, and it can create a little bit of havoc if you're not careful. So leave that one off. And then the same with the Instant 2D. Rapid Sketch and Instant 2D will both be off. When we actually get into a sketch and go to create something, you'll find out your preference on the shaded sketch contours to go with. So opening up a sketch, do be careful with, and we'll get it to expand out here, the 3D sketch. We're not ready for 3D sketches. 3D sketches operate in, well, all three planes. They are a very powerful tool, but we want to stay in the sketch. So you don't really need to even expand out the arrow on this one. Just clicking on the sketch will take you into the command. So we'll get that in a second. Smart dimensions, do be aware that under the smart dimension, when we're in the sketch, you're going to have additional options there. And then anywhere you see the arrows, you're going to have additional items to pick from. And since we're not in the sketch, those are active. But as soon as I click on one, it's going to say pick a plane, pick somewhere to sketch, and then we'll start drawing lines, circles, splines. Out of this group, the plane inserts a plane into a 3D sketch. There's that 3D sketch term. Avoid that icon, at least initially. All right, so our basic sketch tools. Trimming entities is grayed out because we don't have anything on the screen to trim. Converting entities, intersecting curves, those need geometry to perform their functions, and also would need to be in a sketch. Offset, not available. Don't remember that one. That might be new for 2018. So there again, adds a 3D sketch. We want to stay away from it at least for a while. Mirror, linear sketch patterns. If we expand that out, we're going to see things like circular and mirrored patterns. And then basic operations, move, scale, rotate within the sketch. Our relation functions, repairing a sketch if we're doing an import, maybe we brought in a DWG and it has issues we'd want to repair. Quick snaps we really don't need to do anything with. Rapid sketch and instant 3D. And as I mentioned, you'll either like or not like shaded sketch contours. Across the top of the screen then we have the heads-up display. So zoom to fit, zoom to area. Go to the previous view, section views. Dynamic annotation. I don't use that one regularly, so we'll have to go look it up. View orientations. And the selection for the standard views. What do you want to look at? The shaded with edges, shaded, hidden lines removed, hidden lines visible, and then basic wireframe, everything visible. The display and types, then you'll want to be careful with. If you click on the hide all types, then everything underneath will gray out. So focus on the arrow on this one that I want to see temporary axes. If I were to click on the eyeball, then everything automatically is grayed out except for, I believe that's going to be sketch relations and decals. And then you'll need to click on the eyeball again to bring it back up. So with the arrow pulled down, I want to see temporary axes. I can click on that. That will show me anything that has an arc or a circle, cylindrical geometry has an axis. It will show me that axis. So I don't need that right now. We'll go ahead and turn it off. All right, so edit appearance takes us directly over into the task pane and then switches to the property manager. Notice it's in the property manager, not in the display. And these are the parameters based on color, texture, whatever it is that we're trying to apply. Just kind of accepting the check mark and clicking back in the work area clears, compresses the task pane, clears out the property manager. Screen background. Okay, so set background appearance, document scene tools. If you get that, would you like to set the background appearance to use the document scene? Yes. All right, that activates. So under the options, we'll go into that real quick. Under the options and colors, for some reason the use document scene was not selected. So now it is selected. And we're going to be able to pick, so we have kind of that gradient 3-point faded. I prefer just plain white. Keeps the the screen pretty well visible. So notice that the 3-point faded shows up as the default. I can set any one of these as the default. What's not usually explained or explained very well is that under the scenes and the basic scenes, see if we can get into that. I'm going to scroll down. Yeah, pitch black is not a one that's it is interesting to all right, so it is interesting to try and navigate, but I want to set this as the default scene, and then now when I go back to the appearances, my default will be just plain white. All right, find something that you're comfortable with that works, and go with that as your options. Under the where are we at? Display, view settings. We'll do the pull down, shadows in shaded mode. No, we'll turn that off. Perspective, ambient occlusion. Cartoon is interesting again, but not very useful on the workflow. All right, so I've got a screen that's starting to come together. If I'm going to start at this point things that I'm changing regularly, things that some of these will stay modal within the document properties. I won't have to change them from one session to the next. And some of them will be items that I need to save to the document template to have them come back. So things like the I'd like to see the origin. So we're going to navigate to the hide items and then view origins, and then that gives me the blue origin. That blue origin is going to be very handy because when I hold down the middle mouse button and move, that puts me in rotate. So I can see the reference triad rotating in the lower corner, but depending on what face, what plane I'm sketching in, the blue origin in the center is going to give me a little bit better information, mainly horizontal, vertical orientation, and a sense of which side I'm sketching on. All right, so that will get us set up. I'm going to go through, let's see, Alt, and the middle mouse button is also a rotate. I should be getting one of those to go to pan. All right, maybe not. All right, so Alt and Shift and the middle mouse button holding it down are supposed to do... Oh, I got my window pick. All right, so we're going to have to see what's going on with the keyboard here, but different combinations on the mouse. The scroll wheel is to zoom in, zoom out. One of the options that we'll take a look at real quick is on, nope, not spin, under view. Reverse the mouse wheel zoom direction. If you are used to AutoCAD, you will want to reverse that. So we did the view. Pretty much, it's not detailing it, there it is. Front view, Control 1, right view, Control 4. So if I go Control 1 on the keyboard, that puts me into the front view. Make sure I'm in the work area. Control 2. All right, so my views are, I still got something going on. All right, so I'm not rotating into that view with the control keys. All right, so Control 1 is the front, Control 2 is the back, left is Control 3, right is Control 4, top is Control 5, bottom is Control 6, isometric is Control 7, and normal 2 is Control 8. Control 8 requires that you select something. If I double click on the reference triad, it is going to top, front, and right, based on my selection of the triad. All right, so new installation, new on a kind of an older computer, so you know, it's not a perfect setup, but we'll get those resolved, and we'll be into to sketching next.